The geography of our planet is impressive. As far as we're aware, there are no other planets like it. Oceans, mountains, forests, living organisms, and arable land. Earth could be a 1 in a trillion planet. According to the United Nations, there are 195 countries. Some countries have, well, let's say, better geography than others. If you are a flat, landlocked small country, chances are you will never become a global superpower. So in this video, we've got some of the most disadvantaged countries in the world based on their natural geography. Russia. This one is pretty obvious. Russia is by far the largest country on the planet, and by a country mile. This does play in its favor, however, as it has the territory rights to more of Earth than anyone else. It can also claim all of the resources that are within its given borders. But being a country of this size does come with drawbacks. It borders 14 other countries by land, 2 of which have nuclear weapons. Being a country of this size means you have more land to protect. Let's say theoretically Japan decided to attack Russia from its east. It would have to mobilize its entire army from around the country to protect its eastern border, which is not an easy job, given the amount of heavy, bulky armored vehicles Russia has. And despite Russia being by far the world's largest country, it doesn't have the greatest access to the world's oceans. This prevents it from becoming a global maritime superpower. The Black Sea, which Crimea sits in, is also surrounded by NATO and EU countries. Due to Russia's freezing cold climate during many months of the year, it only has access to 2 warm water ports. A warm water port, by the way, is a port that does not freeze or contain ice. To compound this problem with Russia's ports is that in order to protect naval power, Russia must pass through waters controlled by NATO or NATO-aligned nations. And finally, there is a region outside of Russia that seriously hurts Russia. It is the Great European Plain. Quite simply, to the west of Russia is their biggest enemy, Europe, and NATO. This region of Eastern Europe is predominantly flat, making it an easy target for a land invasion. If Putin had one geographical wish, it would likely be to give Ukraine a Himalayan-style mountain range. Indonesia. Indonesia is not a solid chunk of land like the US, China, India, or Australia. It is an archipelago, and by far the largest of its kind. Even today, we are unsure of just how many islands belong to Indonesia. There are roughly 17,000 in total, of which 6,000 are inhabited. This means that for many of the population, waterways are their only source of transport, which are nowhere near as efficient as road or rail networks. Now, when you have a country which is separated by water within itself, each region will have its own distinct cultural identity, which of course is a great thing for cultural diversity. But when it comes to a unifying a nation, it can cause problems. The distinct culture, languages, and religions can cause separatist movements, which aren't desirable for a central government. The most populous part of the country is Java, an island which by size would be the 13th largest in the world. Java holds the capital of Jakarta, which is the largest city in the country, and in fact, one of the largest cities on Earth by urban population. Java sits in a seismically active zone, meaning it is prone to earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, which of course pose a huge threat to human life and infrastructure. Overcrowding and sinking due to rising sea levels in Jakarta has now forced the Indonesian government to build a new capital city in Borneo. Nepal. Nepal is landlocked by India to the south and China to the north. You can also say that Nepal is surrounded by the world's 2 largest countries, both nuclear-armed rivals with tense relations. Nepal relies on India for its maritime access, as it provides the shortest route. It needs India to supply almost all of its fuel, like oil and coal. Nepal is essentially being held hostage by India. Nepal is a completely landlocked country. It is 800 kilometers long and only 250 kilometers wide. At the widest point, it has a very picturesque landscape, ranging from 59 meters to 8,848 meters. With 90 peaks, over 7,000 meters tall. Chile. Chile is a country on the southwestern part of South America and is sandwiched between the Pacific Ocean and the Andes mountain range. It is one of the most earthquake-prone regions on Earth. Now, most obviously, Chile's geography, or should I say ship, is truly unique and quite bizarre. It is one of the longest countries on Earth. stretching for more than 4,000 kilometers, and yet at its widest point is only 350 kilometers, with the average being just 177 kilometers, which for reference is about the same distance as London to Bristol as the crow flies. Much of the northern part of the country is covered by the Atacama Desert. This means the country is covered on all sides by either the desert, mountains, or the Pacific Ocean, making it really hard for the country to trade. In spite of all these disadvantages, Chile is actually the most prosperous and one of the most stable countries in South America. In sum, this is part due to its isolation from other unstable countries on the continent. Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan's geography well sucks. Let us explain why it is one of the two double landlocked countries in the world. This means it is a landlocked country whose neighbors are also landlocked. In order to reach open sea, it has to cross at least two international borders. 80% of its area comprises of deserts, and the remaining areas are mostly mountains. It has a very limited source of water, and the country isn't an earthquake zone. Its climate also makes life difficult for its people. The average temperature in summer can be 40 degrees Celsius. However, in winter, it is more like -2 to -40 degrees Celsius. And to be honest, this isn't just limited to Uzbekistan. Pretty much all or most of the Stan countries in Central Asia face the same issue. It is a difficult place to live in terms of geography, and its former owner Russia sits just north of them. And with Putin's invasion of Ukraine, these countries should be watching cautiously. Poland. Poland is dead center in the European continent. This is kind of an advantage, as it means the Poles can travel quite easily to other countries as well as trade. However, this is what made it so easy for other nations such as France, Russia, Sweden, and Germany to invade Poland throughout history. It is largely flat, hence why it has no natural defense that can repel foreign invaders. For this reason, Nazi Germany was able to steamroll its way through the country. Poland also sits between the two most powerful military alliances in the world, Russia and NATO. If there is ever a conflict between the two, Poland will be directly in the crossfire again. It is also kind of landlocked in a practical sense. Yes, it has coasts on the Baltic Sea, but it doesn't have sovereign access to them. The Danish Strait is a chill point controlled by Denmark and Sweden. As Poland is a continental country, it experiences a huge variation in temperatures. Mongolia. Mongolia's geography is very similar to that of Uzbekistan's. It has no access to the ocean or sea. Although it's large enough, it faces water and forest scarcity. As the vast majority of the land is not suitable for agriculture, it has very harsh summers and winters, and around 1/3 of the country is desert. It is sandwiched between Russia and China, two nuclear-armed potential superpowers and sets in an undesirable, almost forgotten part of the world. And also, a fun fact about Mongolia is that 99.7% Mongolia is empty, because almost all people live here. Lesotho, out of all the other landlocked, disadvantaged countries, this African country has a special disadvantage, as it is surrounded from all four sides by another country, South Africa. If they decided to block its way to sea, or block the supply of goods in and out of the country, they would have no other way. Lesotho is a very poor nation and only has a population of 2 million. It doesn't stand a chance against South Africa. Maldives. Not only is being landlocked, a disadvantage sometimes being in the ocean or sea can be dangerous too. The country of the Maldives composed of hundreds of islands, which lie in the southwest of the Indian shores, in the Indian Ocean. It is completely out in the open ocean, meaning it is an easy target for an invader. As beautiful as the Maldives is, it is one of the lowest lying countries in the world, with an average height of just 1.5 meters above sea level. The UN Environmental Panel has warned that if the rise in water levels continues at the current rates, the Maldives will be uninhabited by 2100. Bangladesh. Even though Bangladesh is a rather small country by land size, in fact the 94th largest, it is one of the most populous countries in the world. Bangladesh is sitting on a time bomb of natural disaster. The possibility of an 8-inch rise in the sea level in the Bay of Bengal by 2030 would devastate more than 10 million people. The partial melting of Greenland ice alone over the course of the 21st century could inundate more than half of Bangladesh. It is the most likely spot on the planet for the greatest humanitarian catastrophe. While the worldwide population growth rate continues to drop, the population rate of Bangladesh is only increasing. The eastern part of the country receives tremendous rainfall. The Ganga River enters from the northwest after traveling through half of India in its most polluted form. On the other hand, the northernmost districts of the country suffers severe droughts. Due to illegal deforestation, the Ganges is causing massive soil erosion, which is another major problem. So the size of the land is decreasing and the population is increasing. Bangladesh is also prone to severe extreme weather, such as typhoons and earthquakes. And as Bangladesh is a developing poor, extremely densely populated nation, these disasters can cause monumental structural and human damage. So at the end, I want to say that if I miss any country whose geography is not good, or I have done any mistake in this video, please let me know in comment section.